Hi, I'm Auntie Dawn. Welcome to my kitchen. Today I'm making mushroom gravy. I start with powdered dried mushroom. This is a mix of brown button mushrooms, maitake, and shiitakes. The brown button mushrooms have a much stronger mushroomy flavor, so I'd like to balance that out with the milder tasting shiitake, maitake, and oyster mushrooms. Next, I need alliums, which is 2 cloves of garlic and half an onion. Then there's the matter of stock. Today I have a cup of chicken stock reduction and a cup of mushroom broth. You can use either one and still get a great flavor. For my fat, I could use butter, or I've got chicken fat here. And for my other flavorings, I have sherry, powdered poultry seasoning, cayenne, soy sauce or tamari, and white and black pepper. I'll start by chopping up my alliums. First I'll smash my garlic. And I'm going to want to mince it pretty fine. Like that. I'm leaving it held together by the stem end, just like you do with a big ol' onion, and it really helps hold it together while I chop it up. There's my chopped garlic. Now I'm going to want to get this onion in about the same size pieces. So one cut in half here, and then small slices down the length of the onion. And chop, chop, chop. Keeping my fingers out of the way. So I'm ending up with pieces like this. And there's my chopped onion. Now that my prep is done, I've opened a window. I'm going to turn on the vent fan before turning on the heat under my pot. While the pot heats up, I'm going to add about a 1/4 cup of fat to it. I want the heat about medium-low. Since I'm going to be cooking onions and garlic, I really don't want any chance of them burning because that lends a very disagreeable flavor to the dish. So I've got my fat melting on medium-low. This is not properly rendered schmaltz, so you can probably hear it hissing and popping as it boils off the bits of stock still in it. Okay, now that it's melted, I'm going to add my powdered mushroom. So powdered mushroom does not have the thickening power that a flour roux does, and so I'm going to be adding the stock gradually so that I don't thin it out too much. I want to make sure I break up all of the lumps. Okay, and it's already starting to really bubble and darken, so I'm going to turn the heat down a little bit, but now I'm about to cool it down by adding my onions and garlic. Now I'm stirring and then distributing across the bottom of the pan. I'm going to turn it down just a bit more. It's quite low now. I want all of this to simmer together and the garlic and onions to start to soften. Powdered mushrooms are such a wonderful way to add rich mushroomy flavor to a dish without adding the texture of mushrooms, which a lot of folks don't like. Okay, now I'm going to add just a pinch each, just a little bit of my poultry seasoning, cayenne. The onions and garlic are starting to soften, so I'm going to add a splash of sherry and a splash of soy sauce or tamari. This is low salt tamari. Sherry goes really nicely with mushrooms. It's in my favorite mushroom pate recipe. It has a way of bringing out the better qualities of the mushroom. It's really nice when you're deglazing a pan full of it. You can see some fat is starting to break out from it. It means I didn't add quite enough powdered mushroom. I was eyeballing quantities here, so that is likely to happen. So I'm going to just add a little bit more of this maitake. I really want all of the fat to be absorbed up by the mushroom so it doesn't break out of the finished gravy. The nice thing about powdered mushroom is that you don't need to cook it up like you do for roux. It adds flavor when you do brown it in the fat, but it is not necessary. It's not going to have that raw flour flavor like flour does. But generally you want to cook mushrooms very thoroughly because they're much more available to digest for our systems when they're well cooked. So now that that's come together, I'm going to start to add my stock. I want to add a little bit of a time so I can work it smooth in between additions. Okay, it's been simmering about 10 minutes. You can start to see bubbles coming up around the edges. I've heated up the rest of this cup of stock in the microwave. I'm going to add it. And at this point, I'm going to add my bit of white pepper and black pepper. And this is thin enough that it looks like I'm not going to need to add any of that mushroom broth. I will just be boiling this down. Okay, this has been simmering about 20 minutes and it is done. I'm going to give it a taste and see if it needs anything else. That is powerfully mushroomy. I'm going to give it a little more tamari. And here's my finished gravy. It's really good on roasted potatoes and makes an excellent base for a pot pie or a soup or even in a stew. It's also a great way to fancy up an otherwise plain dinner. It'll thicken a lot in storage, but it should thin up just a little bit thicker than it was when you heat it back up again. If you like that silky texture, you can puree it with an immersion blender. I hope you enjoyed this gravy as much as I do. See you next time.